Hi, welcome to Priestessing the Priestesses with Kohenet Annie Matan and Kohenet Dvorah Grenn. This, we think, is episode 5, and we've been away a little bit. 2 weeks ago, we put out our prayer, and last week we were both unwell, and we were priestessing ourselves. And that's what we want to talk about today. So I have a broken toe, and Dvorah has vertigo. And we'll both talk a little bit about how we're learning from these things and how they're affecting us in our practice and the ways that we're showing up in the world. And I think we're offering these lessons and experiences, our own experiences as lessons and models for all of us.
So we hope they'll be useful. I myself hate talking about frailty of any kind or any kind of weakness or even my private life. But Annie has been pulling me out of that reluctance, and some others, and I've also been feeling the need to be more comfortable with putting myself out there in the way we are doing by posting these videos, especially in the hopes that we can reach others and be helpful to others. So I'll just say a word about this. I've had vertigo or dizziness, which borders on vertigo before. And the first time I thought it was a message from Goddess was when I was finishing my dissertation, and I had it for about 3 days. I couldn't read or write and do my work, and I thought it was her telling me to slow down. And so fortunately this time, it's lasted over a week now, and it took me a couple of days into it when I was still reeling from what on earth is going on here, and of course the fear of COVID and trying to analyze all the symptoms. And none of them were COVID-like in my mind, except I got very warm several times. I had no fever though. And so a friend told me, who has suffered a lot over the years from vertigo, that it can be related to hormones. And so that these are hot flashes. And so at a time when my partner is going through his own hot flashes from hormone treatment for cancer therapy, I'm now having them, and it's been about 91, 94 degrees. So it's been interesting at home, but it was a great relief to find out that that's all it was and that it wasn't any kind of weird fever. And so after a couple of days, I kind of accepted it a bit more and remembered that time during my dissertation and thought, okay, maybe, as we've been talking about, maybe this is a message to slow down. And of course, that's really hard right now. I was under 3 very, very important, intense deadlines last week. And so maybe that made my head spin. I mean, we can always psychologize these things. And I hate to, again, to see, I see it as a weakness to think that, oh, I was so overwhelmed, this is how it manifests, but it has to manifest somehow. And it could easily have manifested in a cold or the flu or something else where your resistance is down. And I pushed through, somehow I got the deadlines met. And then I thought, okay, so now that that's behind me, it should go away. And it's still there. So there may be some other factors. I'll have some tests for it tomorrow and see what else may be going on. And the other big stressor in my life, of course, is that my partner is going to have an important test tomorrow to see where he is with his cancer and whether radiation has beaten it back. And so that's the underlying piece. And I think I have done a bit less meditation than I normally would do. I'm normally in several beautiful sessions with others. And of course, it's a time when I need it the most. But I have been able to do it myself in solitude. And that is even more important, I find. So, so the self-care, which Annie will also talk about, is uppermost in my mind, partly because we're doing this series, I think. And because of all the emphasis on self-care right now with COVID and so on. So I have been doing that and drinking about, I would say, 70 to 95 ounces of water. And that has really been a huge help and is a healthy thing to do anyway. I check to see, because I've heard you can also drink too much water, but 90 ounces isn't too much. So it's probably about at the limit. Somebody was recommending online to some sites, 1 liter every hour, which would be, I think, a great mistake. And I think it depletes your salt and has other bad effects. But, during a period when you're fighting the cold or the flu or this, probably anything, the water is really a good idea. It makes the body just work better. It makes it happier. It's like,
and you can add a little salt. You can add a little salt and a little citrus and a little sugar to your water, and you make homemade electrolytes.
Electrolytes, right, right. I have some electrolyte water, and I also don't need to add salt because I love pretzels.
Ah, perfect. You're getting yourself, you're balancing. Pretzels water.
And it's also, you know, a way of nurturing myself is those ridiculous pretzels and cookies, you know, which is not a good thing when you're sick, but yeah.
But it actually, I did learn that crunchy things are actually good for our nervous system. It helps when we crunch or eating chips and cookies.
Really?
One of the reasons we crave them is it helps us settle our nerves. Yeah. So you're doing good things.
Good license for more pretzels. But anyway, yeah, it's very interesting to weigh the psychological possible, you know, causes and just the physical. I mean, well, it's all one, of course, and I'm always trying to separate still, but I realize and understand that we somaticize what's going on in our minds, what we're worried about, what we're stressed about. We all have multiple levels of anxiety right now, between COVID, between possibly having lost jobs, not enough to really survive well or the way we are used to, worry about friends and family, and then the incredible racial inequities and crimes that have been committed, and the responses from Washington, which are, you know, something that sets off any of our nervous systems 50 times a day if we don't cut ourselves off from the news, which is right now very hard to do. Anyway, Annie, please, I don't want to take.
Yeah, I want to ask, so I guess I'll say two big things that have been going on for me. I got so invested in the learning, in following, or actually the unlearning, anti-racist unlearning, and just immersing myself in amazing Black voices and educators. For me, as a practicing priestess, you know, there's a part of me that knows. It's like, well, I've always known, of course, Black Lives Matter, and now I'm building my vocabulary and my toolkit, and making sure that my business is in alignment, and that when I'm supporting, I support mostly white women, and I want to make sure that I'm sort of holding a space for the processing of all of the stuff that's coming up for white folks as we're learning. This is our problem to solve, right?
And learning how we can best support people of color and our Black friends.
Yes.
Is so important.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for the first week, I just got, maybe even for the first 2 weeks, like I let myself be sort of pulled off course with all of my other work, because I just felt like this is the most important thing right now. And I went too far. Like I stopped taking care of myself. I was on social media, following and watching videos and reading books and reading posts, like in every down moment. And so I was, you know, my nervous system, I was very stressed out, and it felt good to be doing something, to be learning. I was doing other things too, making donations, writing prayers, connecting with Black friends, and learning, and in a variety of ways, calling out injustice. You know, I wasn't only following things on social media. I just became a little bit obsessive and forgot that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And now I'm finding more balance where, you know, I feel like my social media, my Instagram, maybe is a good indicator of like, there's a mix now of my work and the work of other colleagues, and the explicit highlighting and centering of Black voices, and it's mixed all together. It's not only one thing or only the other thing. And I kind of knew that would happen. It would take a little time to go, you know, I didn't want the pendulum to swing back to the other extreme. I wanted to find some more comfortable middle ground. And amid that intensity, I was really worrying about an event last weekend that I felt I should be going to, but I didn't want to. I knew that it probably wasn't going to be good for me. But I had a lot of like fear of missing out and worrying about letting some people down. And then on Wednesday night, I broke a toe. And because we live in, I'm really trying, I'm not taking transit much, and the place that I was considering going would have been a not too bad walk if I didn't have a broken toe. So the truth is, I laughed when I broke my toe. I was like, well, this is ridiculous. I stubbed it on a box that was in my hallway in the dark that I forgot it was there and walked full force into it. And one of the things I realized the next morning after I put arnica on right away and I elevated it and I treated it all day the next day, and it's healing quite quickly. But I thought, okay, well, now I can't go to the thing because I need to stay home and keep my foot elevated and just take care of myself. And one of the things that also occurred to me then was, yeah, okay, how many times have I gotten sick or gotten injured right before something I was wrestling with that I wanted, that a part of me wanted to do, even though part of me knew that I shouldn't, and I couldn't say no. I wasn't allowing myself permission to just say, I know this might be disappointing for someone else, but it's not good for me, so I want to say no. And this time I thought, okay, well, my toe gets me out of this one, and how many times has my body gotten me out of something? And wouldn't it be nice if I could teach myself to say no, to back off, to ease off before I hurt myself or get sick?
Right.
And so that feels like some important continued learning. And I also think, I'm not just, so I was immersed, I've been and still immersing myself in resources about white supremacy and unlearning racism. And I'm trying to continue to build my business and launching a new program this week, Living from the Heart, Solstice to Solstice. And I'm parenting full-time half weeks. So I have a 4-year-old, and it's just me and her 3 or 4 days a week with no breaks. And actually yesterday, we've expanded our pod to include her best friend and her best friend's mom. She's a single mom. And that was her first time getting to have a play date in 3 months.
That's great.
And so, we're figuring out how to, what is it? I read an article actually pretty early on about harm reduction in the time of COVID. There's complete isolation and as an option. And I know people who haven't seen another human in 3 months, other than maybe grocery shopping, or those who can afford it just have everything delivered. And now with contactless delivery, somebody drops it, rings the bell, and walks away.
Right.
So you don't have to talk to a person face to face. And I'm grateful that hasn't been my reality. And I'm noticing since I moved back, my living situation changed. So now it's me and my daughter half the week, and then just me the other half the week. It's my first time living alone since 2006. And that's really significant. I'm just noticing, okay, there's a lot going on in the world, right? We're in a pandemic and an uprising, and we still have all of our regular stressors, parenting, illness, partners. It's a lot to hold.
It is. I think it's important what you said earlier before we went on camera about the fact that not maybe just what led us into having these things happen, but what we've learned from it and how we've changed our behavior or have been more able to change it. I have been able to, for now, before my classes start, cut my time on Zoom. I really see that I need to do that. And I can't sit with my partner and look at Facebook, which I try to limit my time anyway, but I like to be with him and share some of this stuff, but I can't look at the scrolling, so I really don't need to be sitting there. And I'm trying to just limit my time on the computer. I actually shut it this morning and just went to read something, because that's right now a bit of a struggle to read even a print article. But so I think those kinds of limits and considerations have to spill over into my future life when this is passed. And I think it's getting better. So I think it'll be passed, I hope, in a couple of days. But, and just as you're talking about learning how to say no without your body insisting on it. I just want to do a time check because
I know we're almost there. I was going to ask you, what have you done differently? So it sounds like your symptoms really forced you to make some pretty specific changes. And
right.
I just realized go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, they're pretty, for me, pretty drastic, because I enjoy being at all these meetings and rituals and things that I do on the computer. And I may have to really start either doing more phone or just limiting it to good friends, family meetings, and then my classes, because of course I teach online. So so we'll see how that all develops. It'll be interesting. Yeah. But you know, we're changing our lives anyway. I mean, the pandemic has shaped and reshaped all our lives, and I think that is not going to go away even when there's a treatment and we can get out there again.
Yeah, and I think just the same way that what was I saying about like the specific or the ways that I I don't want to say overreacted because it's not true, but for me, like the way that I got overly involved in a particular way of reacting after George Floyd's murder, and then had to like find my way back to balance. I think what you're describing about, you know, the way that we all have been forced or been encouraged to get glued to screens because of COVID and because of the pandemic, and many people are getting zoomed out now. Zoomed out, right? Yeah. So now again, we're trying to find some balance, and this is the right season for it. Like spending more time in nature, which is physically grounding, and just like you're doing right now, taking this call outside where you can be, you know, hear things that aren't limited to this particular bubble experience. And more time, if we can, with the people with whom we can be face to face, and at least we can bring balance, right?
It's so important right now. You're right. Many people are getting zoomed out and having physical effects as well. Not just but not the least of which is exhaustion, and also picking up for highly sensitive people, picking up the grief and anger and everything else that can come through the screen when you're in certain groups, which is important for our sharing. But we also really need to take care of ourselves then when we leave such a meeting. Or, you know,
and to remember when we go into spaces where we're going to be sharing grief and pain and fear, to shield ourselves.
Protection,
and maybe that's something we can talk about next week.
That'd be great. I'd like to do that.
Plant the seed. And talk about how to protect ourselves physically and emotionally when we're in the midst of such energetic and literal turmoil.
Yeah. Wonderful idea. I look forward to it. And we'll see you all next week.
All right. Yeah. Take care.
Thanks, Annie.
Thank you.